Hi, this video is slightly different from previous videos in that I'm thinking about changes in special educational needs over time. So I'm lecturing on the module for Introduction to Special Educational Needs on the Childhood and Education Studies and it's the SEND pathway, so they all look at special educational needs. It means that I look at the Warnock inquiry. The Warnock Report was written back in 1978, and so we are now coming up for 45 years later, and some of the things that she suggested back then are still not happening. So I've been looking also at the 2022 Green Paper about special educational needs, looking at changes that they're intending to make. And one of those changes is to reduce the Masters SENCO award, which all SENCOs have to take, to being an NPQ. Now, there's nothing wrong with NPQs, they're good qualifications. I've lectured on different ones. But the NPQ, I think, would be great for teachers to take as opposed to SENCOs. So back in Warnock's report in 1978, Warnock recommended, firstly, she introduced the term special educational needs, which was a change from some very offensive terms. But she also recommended that teachers were trained about special educational needs. Now, I was very lucky. I'm very old, and so in 1981, when I started my Bachelor of Education degree, which was just at the same time as the 1981 Education Act, we really looked at special educational needs. I had some very good training in that, and it set up an interest that has lasted throughout my entire career. These days, the students taking the teacher training in whatever form, there are now so many different pathways into teaching, they're not getting as much automatically about special educational needs. If they're given the pathway, if they've opted to do their qualification looking through the special educational needs pathway, of course, fantastic grounding, amazing. However, if they choose the generic one, there is very little on special educational needs. Now, in the current code of practice, as with previous codes of practice, the teachers, the class teachers, every single teacher is responsible for the special educational needs within their classroom. And that's fantastic. The theory of all of this is wonderful. However, in practice, how can somebody be responsible for special educational needs and disabilities and all the children within the class who have these needs if they haven't had the training? If they don't know how to recognise a certain type of special needs, if they don't know the accommodations to make. Now, the SENCO course, the NASENCO, the Masters Award, is brilliant. I am a tutor on it and I find it amazing. It covers data management systems, it covers the external providers and the internal provision you have for special needs. It covers policy writing, making sure you have the right policy and information report and that you've included the parents. It talks a lot about pupil voice, parent voice, and making sure these are included. You have learning logs where you're reflecting on all of this, which means that if these things are not in place, you have the thought time, the reflection time to see how you might make those effective in your provision, in your setting. They look at times of transition, they look at leadership, all these things that SENCOs need. You have essays to write, you write about the legislation and guidance and how that applies to your school, the types of needs within your school. So everything relates back to your own setting. So you look at the theory, but you apply it to reality, to the setting you are in, to the children who are in your care. Simple as that. Another essay is to make a comparison. So you visit another school and you look at a specific area and you look at what they do, look at what you do, look at the theory, look at the underpinning research and literature and guidance, and you can then make suggestions as to how you are going to further develop that sort of provision within your setting. Brilliant. Then you have a choice of either a case study or a piece of project work. Many people use that to do an inset for their school where they're training their teachers and then do their academic writing about that. So they've got the theory and all the research that underpins all of that. And finally, they reflect back on the course and their own development. That sort of grounding takes you into that role of being a SENCO. It's a difficult role. It can be a lonely role. Quite often you are the expert in the field, and therefore everybody is coming to you all the time. So it's really important that our SENCOs are well trained, understand special needs, and not just understand their school, but understand their school in the context of the wider picture. It's important that we bring back more training about special needs into the teacher training. If teachers are going to be responsible for special educational needs in their classes, they have to have the knowledge, the understanding and the training. You can't expect somebody to go into a classroom and say, oh, I think they might have a bit of dyslexia, or I'm wondering if they're on the spectrum. I wonder if I've maybe got the lights too bright because they've got sensory needs. How are they going to know that if they haven't had the training, if it hasn't ever been explained to them? So this is really important stuff. You also need to be trained in leadership, because if you, as a SENCO, you're often asking people for things. You're asking for information. Oh, could you just let me know the scores for this? Could you just let me know that? If you're going to be doing that, you have to have certain leadership skills. If you're going to explain to a parent that their child might have a learning need or a physical disability that needs discussing more, it could be that their hearing's down, it could be that they're not seeing very well, anything, however great or small the need, if you're going to be the one who has that initial conversation with the parent, you have to know how to have those conversations. They're not easy, and it is a skill. And the Masters Award gives you the time and the training to develop these skills, because you also look at the theory, the understanding, different approaches. You're given scenarios to address and to understand. There's a forum to post discussions on. You get the chance to actually work out, how am I going to make sure that parents are involved? How am I going to help them to feel included? How am I going to help a parent who may indeed have some special educational needs themselves understand the needs of their child and understand the support that we are giving them? How are we going to help that parent to appeal when the EHCP is not granted? All of these things are skills that we need to develop as SENCOs, and I feel very strongly that whilst the Green Paper is saying, oh yeah, we're going to level up, it seems that it's actually trying to level down. It's looking, we have waiting lists for CAMS of 2 years, and that's quite normal at the moment. Well, CAMS is Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. Don't think we can afford to have a 2-year waiting list for something like that. SALT, speech and language therapy. They're brilliant services. We've got these amazing services, but they are not well funded and they're not easily accessible to schools because of the long waiting lists. And then they can quite often get the brunt of it, but it's not their fault. They can't help being understaffed and under-resourced. There are resources for schools, simple resources. I'm wearing a fidget ring at the moment. This ring here is useful for fidgeting. And in fact, fidgets are the thing I've got most of at my desk because I'm a terrible fidget. There are noisy fidgets like that, but there are also silent fidgets. There are things like, I've shown you my puppets before and things like that can really support. But if you haven't had the training, how do you know about these things? How do you know to use them? So we need to give special needs the attention it deserves. Disabilities are finally becoming more, physical disabilities are becoming more visible, that's the word I'm looking for, in the media. We're seeing people, we've got Paralympics, we have Paragames all the time, and we have sports. The wheelchair rugby is just amazing. There's so much more out there, but it still needs the attention within schools. It needs the support, it needs the education, and that's a key thing. We need to be more understanding, more resourceful, and have more given to us to help us to do this job, which can change somebody's life. Thank you.